How's it going, everyone? Today I want to talk about how my used Saab, my 2008 Saab 9.3 Turbo X, has held up after 175,000 miles. So my last video I filmed with me driving, which is what I used to do for every single one of my videos a long time ago, and you guys seem to like that. So let me know. I'm gonna put a poll up here in this corner. If you guys prefer me doing these types of videos while driving instead of standing here with the camera on the car, then go ahead and vote in that poll and let me know which one that you prefer. The reason for starting this video like this is in my last video, I had my Turbo X up on jack stands and the wheels were gone. I told you guys that I had them at a wheel shop to have them refinished because one, the center caps are messed up, and two, each wheel had a little bit of curb rash or like a chip in it here or there. Something was wrong with everyone pretty much. They weren't perfect. They weren't necessarily bad, but they weren't perfect. And I wanted them to be perfect. So I got them back yesterday and they look better than I would have imagined. They look just like they were supposed to from factory. The center caps match perfectly. They even cleaned off the Saab logo because that was a little bit faded and foggy before. So how has this car held up after 175,000 miles? And the short answer is very well, actually. I bought this car back in June and I've put about 4,000 miles on it since then. And knock on wood, I have had zero problems. The only work that's been done to it besides an oil change and a cross-wheel drive service are the modifications I've done, such as the DO88 intercooler and charge pipes and the Corona exhaust. So it hasn't been out of commission for any reason that's a fault of its own. It's been dead reliable for me. But as you can see, just by me walking around the car, it's held up very, very well. Now, this car was initially from Massachusetts. It lived its entire life up until 4 months ago on the East Coast. So it does have a little bit of rust underneath. Nothing on the body though. The body is 100% clean. No rust in spots like right here. So the body is completely clean. It's just the undercarriage of the car just has a little bit of rust on it. And of course all the nuts and bolts under there are pretty much completely rusted away. But outside of that, I mean, I know the previous owner had things like the spoiler repainted, the front bumper repainted. So this is not all 100% original paint, but it looks perfect. Now the paint itself is not in perfect condition. It's going to be hard to pick up on camera. You can see a lot of light scratches in the clear coat. So I did actually just buy a bunch of stuff to do a paint correction or a detail on this car. So that might be the next upload. For a car that's 10 years old and has the mileage that it has, it is in very, very, very good condition. I'll go ahead and show you guys the interior real quick. Of course, passenger seat is just about flawless, but the driver's seat just has a little tear right there, and that's it. It's perfect besides that. No scratches down here on the carbon fiber. All the buttons are 100% perfect. Nothing wrong with the steering wheel or anything like that. Of course, door panels are all still flawless too, and the back seat, which is hardly ever used, is perfect as well. So really the biggest thing wrong with this car when I got it was cosmetic stuff, and that sounds weird saying because it is in very good cosmetic shape. Like I just mentioned at the beginning of this video, the wheels, which were not really the car just being old, that was a problem with them being improperly cleaned, I guess. So go ahead and pop the hood and talk about how this car has been mechanically. Now, like I said, I've only owned it for 4,000 miles, but in those 4,000 miles, it has been flawless. And as I've heard from at least 2 of the previous owners, I think there's been 3 owners of this car before me, but as I've heard from 2 of them, the car has been extremely, extremely well maintained, extremely well taken care of. The only thing that I can really complain about would be the coilovers. And the only thing regarding the coilovers would be that every now and then when I enter my driveway, I get a slight, just a tiny little squeak out of the front passenger coilover when I go over the driveway. I think it's just, maybe it's just starting to get old. They might need to be rebuilt eventually, but really they're quite good. So now I think I'm gonna jump in the car and talk about how it drives after 10 years and 175,000 miles. All right, so here we are in the Turbo X. So let's start her up. For 175,000 miles, I mean, this thing drives like it's got 50,000 miles on it. I mean, it drives very well. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the transmission and the clutch. So this car being a 6-speed manual, after 175,000 miles, you might expect it to be a little bit notchy, or it might grind into a gear every now and then, but it doesn't at all. I mean, unless it's my own fault and I don't, you know, I'm careless. The drivability of the car, it's like I'm still driving it brand new. I mean, I've driven new 6-speed manual cars. I've driven a Focus ST, an EcoBoost Mustang, a few others, and I mean, this shifts just as smooth as those. So the clutch on this car, the transmission itself, they're still they're still good. I don't know how else to describe it. I mean, they still work as they should, and I'm very, very happy with that. The clutch that came on the cross-wheel drive cars, specifically the Turbo X, were a lot beefier and kind of like, I guess, more heavy-duty than the stock 2.0 turbo clutches. So this car has had no problems handling the additional horsepower, and specifically the whole lot more torque that it's got now. So it's had zero problems, no slipping, nothing. One thing that has been annoying me lately, and this just started a couple days ago, is the steering wheel. When I turn it a certain amount, maybe like a quarter turn, barely any at all, it squeaks. So I don't know what that is. If anyone in the comments knows, maybe it's just spraying some WD-40 somewhere, please let me know. You guys are probably going to hear it throughout the video if you pay attention for it, but it's been annoying me the last couple days. You know, with a higher mileage car like this, you might expect it to not feel as quick or lose some of its gusto, and let me tell you, it definitely has not. So much. So anyways, I honestly just want an excuse to get on it. So the suspension on this car, I can't talk too much about suspension because this car, of course, as I already mentioned, has coilovers, so it's still not on the stock suspension. But for its age, it handles, or the coilovers age, I guess you could say, outside of that little squeak that I get every now and then, it handles, you know, turns very well. The car handles so well with these still, for how many miles the suspension has on it. It's incredible. I'm blown away by how little body roll there is and how good it still looks, sitting at the height that it does. So I think I've covered most about what I want to cover. You know, the car it's held up extremely well for my liking. It's held up much better than my other 9.3, which had less miles, but that's of course because that car was not taken care of nearly as well as this has, and that just goes to show how important maintenance is. And I've talked about this, you know, in my used cars you should never buy series, and people ask, should I buy this? I'm like, well, if it's been beaten on, you can tell it hasn't been taken care of, then be wary, because it can, you know, you can start having serious problems with it. It hasn't been taken care of. But if you get something that you know has been taken care of, especially if you know the owner that you're buying it from and you know they're a trustworthy person, you could have a much better peace of mind when you go to buy that car. And that's kind of what I did with this one. Thankfully, you know, it's kind of lived a hard life, but it's been well taken care of and very well looked after in its life. So that's why I wasn't too concerned about it, and that's shown so far in the 4,000 miles that I've owned it, that this car has zero signs of losing any sort of life or being any less fun to drive, any less fast, any more problematic. So with that being said, guys, buy a car that's been well taken care of, and when you buy your car, make sure that you take care of it, because if you don't, you can start having problems. Doesn't matter if it's a Turbo X, a Honda Civic, an F-150, doesn't matter what you buy, if you don't take care of it, it's not going to take care of you. So with that being said, guys, that's going to wrap it up for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you all next time. Check your body.